So I'm going to go straight into it. And I wanted to talk about note taking today. Now, note taking skills is one of those skills that's often overlooked, and I think that's because many times we focus on the content, the curriculum, and all of those other strategies when we forget note taking skills. However, if students take notes properly, if they do it the right way, it will actually significantly help their progress. And just before coming on live here today, I did a quick research online, and there's quite a lot of articles, journal articles online that links note-taking with increasing in academic achievement, right? So it's quite important that students do it the right way. So that's the reason why I wanted to come in today. So if you're watching this right now, you probably, your parent or your student, and you just want to learn and just want to figure out what is the best way students can make notes effectively so that it would help them improve their progress and do well and retain the information and therefore do well in the exams. So I'm literally going to dive into it now, and I am going to talk about 3 key mistakes that students make when it comes to note taking. And then I am going to give you 7 effective note taking strategies that students can use to turn that around. Yeah. So I am literally going to jump right in. So in terms of mistakes that students are making when it comes to taking notes, making notes, is spending time making it look pretty, right? So creating some form of art out of their notes. And now the thing is, students do this because they find some comfort in it. It's a bit of a procrastination method. It makes them feel good, right? It is a feel good factor. And because they don't really have confidence, they spend a lot of time doing that. I've worked with students who've, gone and they've got the highlighters and the colors and the pretty cards and everything. But that is not necessarily, long and short of it, is that just wastes time, right? It's time consuming. And it is a distraction because they're procrastinating, right? Because the child is procrastinating, they're not focusing on the key things that they need to learn. Another thing that's wrong with this is actually evidence around top learning strategies show that highlighting doesn't work, or at least highlighting is one of the methods that don't work as well. So yeah, one of the least best methods for revising and taking notes and learning and retaining that information. So this is something that students fall into, and I know it kind of makes them feel good and it kind of takes their mind away from what they need to be doing. But this is just something to be aware of, is that they're spending time prettifying their notes, and it's not necessary. The second thing is that they are writing verbatim, okay? And writing verbatim is often a symptom that they lack confidence in their understanding. They're not taking the time to understand. They don't really understand it. So they write word for word, and they write word for word hoping that they would memorize it word for word. So they're now relying on memorizing something word for word, right? Or should I say cramming? I think actually what I'm looking for is kind of cramming it word for word. I know we all know that cramming doesn't work, right? If you cram something, you might remember it today, but you're going to forget. Okay, so that's why students shouldn't be writing things down word for word. It doesn't matter if it seems like a simple definition, they really need to work on understanding that definition. Okay, so in a minute, we're going to talk about those strategies that they can use instead of writing a verbatim. And just very quickly, I'm going to expand on this later, but they want to be taking active notes, understanding, writing in their own words, and actively understanding that. The third huge mistake is that students take notes one way, right? So they take notes the same way for every single subject. So if you think about just science alone, science is not one subject, right? Even if you're doing combined science, it's not one subject. It's 3 separate disciplines, it's 3 subjects. And even in science alone, you would find that there are different ways that you can take notes for the different subjects, right? Obviously, it isn't going to be the same for everything, but in general, there are some different ways you can take notes with different subjects. So biology, there's a heck of a lot of diagrams that you need to know, that you need to be able to label the heart and so on and so forth. So taking diagrams and taking diagrams from memory is going to be good. For chemistry, there are going to be things like flowcharts. So there's going to be things like life cycle assessments, potable water, all of that, doing like a step-by-step flowchart can be useful. And then in physics, where you have a lot of maths, writing that step-by-step method can be good. You don't want to cram that. That's where you need your step 1, your step 2, and really understanding the process. Okay, so a student shouldn't be taking notes the same way for every single topic or for every single subject. They need to think about what they're learning and how they can take notes for that, and also think about how they learn best, right? So actually some students might learn best with diagrams, but others might just learn best by writing the words to remember it. I would say they also need to take that into account as well. Okay, so before we jump into, so these are the 3 mistakes: taking notes the same way, writing verbatim, and turning their notes into artwork. Okay, now guys, I'm going to jump into how to take notes. So we've talked about, well, what are students doing incorrectly? What are the mistakes they're making? Now let's jump into how can they take notes the right way so that it helps to improve their progress. The first one is making notes in your own words. And I completely understand this now, because when I was at school, I wasn't making notes in my own words. And I was one of those students that just wrote things word for word. And like I said, it's a comfort thing. And it's also, there's a bit of fear element to it, actually, because you think, well, if you write it in your own words, you're going to miss something. You're going to miss something key. However, the best way to do it is to write it in your own words, because that means you've actually completely understood, you've developed your understanding, and you wouldn't miss anything, right? Whereas the other way, it's going to be so much easier for you to miss it. So the best thing to do is to actually make notes in your own words, and specifically summarizing what you've learned, right? So learning is about, or making notes is about summarizing. It's not about copying everything on the slides. It's not about copying everything your teacher gives you. It's not about copying everything from the books. It's about summarizing the information. Then the second thing, actively take notes. And this links to the first one where I talked about in your own words, right? If you can take notes actively, you're going to be confident in your understanding, and you're going to be able to put it in your own words. And so the classic active taking note method that I talk about all the time is read, cover, recite, right? Read your notes, read your book, or read that information, cover it, put it to the side, and recite it. Recite it in your head, recite it out loud, recite it on a piece of paper in your notebook until you get it right. Because when you do that, that way you're going to see, oh, okay, this is where I went wrong. This is the bit that I need to remember. And also, when you forget something, it, like scientifically, you're able to remember it more, like the next time. You know, it's almost like if you touch a heater, right, like you forgot not to go near the heater because it's hot, you're going to remember next time, I'm not going to go near that heater because it's going to burn me, right? Like think about that with kids. So this method is really, really, really effective, and you want to do it in bite-sized sections. So what are the key things that I need to learn? Learn them, bite-sized chunks, read, cover, recite, and summarize your notes. Have that understanding. How to take notes effectively. Third thing is to focus on your exam specification. Just because there can be differences with the specifications, even things like definitions, there can be some differences with the specification. Just make sure that you have a look at that when you're doing it. Actually, in science, it's not so bad, the differences, because science is science. But in other subjects like English, your English language, your English literature, of course, you can start to see those differences across your exam specification. So be aware of your exam specification when you're making notes. I'm not sure why I have used diagrams and imagery in that slide. We can just ignore that bit. The fourth bit is to make structured notes. And by structured notes, I mean, sit down and identify what are the 3 things that I am going to learn today. So the student needs to identify the 3 things that they're going to learn, and they need to make notes on those 3 things. I'm going to learn 1, I'm going to learn 2, I'm going to learn 3. That really helps with that focus. So that's your structured notes. Yeah, and not only does it help with focus, it helps with overwhelm. It means that you're not just grabbing a book, trying to read everything out of it and trying to learn everything. You want to start getting to a process where you're kind of independently learning and confidently knowing what you need to extract from the information. Number 5, use diagrams and imagery. So science is a good example of that, isn't it? So draw a picture of the heart from memory, draw the 4 chambers, draw the blood vessels, label them from memory, right? Very good way to learn. Draw and label a distillation equipment, right? And then test yourself. How does the process of distillation work? How is crude oil separated or whatever, okay? This is also good for active recall, as I mentioned earlier. And when you start to do things like diagrams, it becomes a little less mundane and a bit fun, hopefully. And you're not just writing summary notes or long notes all the time. The 5th information that I'm going to give is, all right, so stay organized, right? Don't just have notes all over the place, keep them in one place. I like an A4 notebook pad. So I love using like one of these ring binded, I don't know how much you can see notepads, because they keep things in one place, not the ones that can be, you can tear the pages easily. You can also use, if you want, like lined papers and put them in folders. And when with science, I would recommend that you separate the different disciplines. So you can put them in different folders or in a big folder, and you separate the different disciplines with dividers. So it's really important to stay organized, because when April comes and the child has to learn in April and they think, oh gosh, I can't remember my notes on blah blah blah, I can't remember where they are, you can just go to that notebook and open it up to that section, right? Or go to your folder and open it up to that section. And the last thing I would say is to transfer notes to things like mind maps, flashcards, and so on and so forth, because once you've made the notes and you're happy with the notes, you are going to want to put them aside so that when it comes to revision, you can easily look through them and just kind of rejig your memory. Okay. So guys, that's it. Parents, that is it. I really do hope that was useful. I really liked that. I do hope that you found it really useful. It's definitely one of those techniques that is overlooked, but it does go a long way to helping the student.